Hello everyone, this is Void Spirit. I'm here to bring you guys amazing fanfiction that you will surely enjoy. But before we start, please subscribe and like the video for more amazing content.
CH-44. Gurian Volcano. A volcano. This was the place the group was currently. The Great Dungeon of the Gurian Volcano. This volcano was located in the north of the Ankadi Duchy and was very dangerous. Unlike the Orcus Dungeon, the Gurian Dungeon was not famous among mercenaries. This was because the magic beasts in this place didn't drop magic stones, so the mercenaries didn't see any gain here. In addition, this volcano was difficult to access. Around the volcano were several sandstorms and gigantic creatures that looked like worms. However, the group got through this easily. As they passed through the sandstorms, they spotted an aging-looking entrance. There is no wind here. It's like the spring. Really? Tio and Shia commented as they got out of the car. The others also agreed with Tio's observation. This place really was less hectic than the outside. They then moved toward the entrance. They approached it and saw a staircase leading down to some place. Something they noticed as they approached the stairs was, "It's hot. Yeah, that's pretty uncomfortable. Even though I feel comfortable here, I can't wait to feel in agony for heat. Don't worry Tio, then I'll throw you into the magma." Shia and Sakura complained about the heat, but Tio, who was a dragon, had high heat resistance. Chloe and Rimuru had temperature resistance abilities and hadn't even noticed until the others commented. "Well, since that's the case, let's finish this dungeon quickly." "Yes. Let's go. Come on. Only if it's now." Hajime encouraged, and the others were also excited. Everyone entered the dungeon. The interior of the Gurian dungeon was quite different from Orcus. The main change was the structure. Lava flowed through some holes in the wall, and in some parts there were small puddles of lava. Some parts of the floor were traps that if stepped on would sink into the lava. Monsters appeared from the walls or the lava, and most of them had magma bodies. This was no big deal. However, the worst thing was, "That's hot. I can't take it anymore. Everyone was very hot. This heat was very strong and caused sweating and inattention. This made traps and monsters that attacked by surprise much more difficult. Every now and then they would stop to rest and use ice magic to cool themselves down. Rimuru could protect them from the cold, but he didn't because of something Seal said before they left Ankadi. The group had already descended 5 floors, and that's when Rimuru noticed something. "Isn't that the serene stone over there?" That's right. Let's collect it then." Rimuru pointed to a small stone glowing red on the wall. Hajime agreed with his words because the stone matched the description Ranzi had told them. You told them to collect the stone, and Rimuru then put the stone away in the infinity space. After that they went down to the 7th floor. Along the way they found several other stones just like it, and continued dodging traps and killing monsters. In time they reached the room that descended to the 8th floor. At this moment, Gruwar, a magic circle, appeared on the floor and summoned a magical beast. It was a bull made of stones that glowed so hot. He was twice the size of a normal bull and gave a loud roar as he appeared. Calamity. Yu was closer and attacked with a black sphere that was made with gravity magic. The bull saw the attack coming and counterattacked with a fireball that came out of its mouth. Kaboom! The two attacks clashed, and Yu's attack easily outweighed the bull's. The sphere hit the bull's head and destroyed it completely. After that the bull's body stopped glowing and did not move anymore. "Is it dead?" "I think so. Hajime-san, we'd better make sure." Prak. Yu wondered if it was over, and Hajime agreed. Shia was being cautious and pulled Doryukin. She crushed the rest of the stone bull easily to ensure its death. "Yeah, that one was a little stronger than the flaming bats we faced before." Really? Tio agreed with Chloe's words, and so did the group. They realized that it would probably get harder from now on. The group continued on their way. After that, just as they imagined, the variation, quantity and strength of the monsters increased. 5 stories later, the monsters and traps had increased, but this was no problem for the group. The worst thing was the extreme heat that got worse the more they lay down. It's hot. Shia, don't pay attention and the heat will go away. Don't pay attention to the sweat either. Look, what's that? It's just water. Fufu. Rimuru-kun, Yu-san is acting strange. Gushin-sama, Yu is going crazy. Her eyes are getting empty. Yu played with her sweat, and Chloe and Tio found this worrying. Rimuru found the effect the heat was having on the group funny and thought, they're going crazy in the heat, aren't they, Seal-san? However, no one answered him. Oh, that's right. Rimuru realized something. Ever since they left the city, he had been feeling a strange sensation. He was feeling lonely. That's because ever since Rimuru had evolved into a demon lord, he had never been alone. Always having his trusted partner by his side. Yet now he didn't have her around and he felt pretty bad about it. Rimuru realized that he might have to reevaluate how he thought about Seal. For now he decided to hold Chloe's hand and Sakura's hand to get rid of the lonely feeling. They were confused by the sudden action, but they were not bothered. Rimuru also used an ice magic to relieve Sakura's heat. This made her shiver as she didn't understand why she was suddenly cold, but she calmed down when she saw that Rimuru had done something. The group stopped to rest. Rimuru and Yu created some giant blocks of ice and made a big igloo. The group was inside the igloo cooling themselves with ice water and resting. Ah, I can finally breathe properly. It's really cool. We just can't take too long. The igloo won't hold much in this heat. Really. Chloe, Sakura, Yu and Rimuru spoke in this sequence. Everyone was enjoying the temporary cold. At this moment Tio called out to Hajime. Gushin-sama, I have a theory about this heat and the surprise traps. Maybe it's the concept of this dungeon. Concept? Hajime asked, confused by his words. Rimuru was quite interested in what Tio talked about and was listening to their conversation. The purpose of the dungeons is the whole defying God thing, right? So there must be various forms of testing. For example, Orcus has high-level magic beasts and the Rainson dungeon makes you stop relying on magic so much. Maybe the concept of this dungeon is to not lose focus even in the worst conditions. That is, this hellish heat. I see. I had never thought that the dungeons were teaching us. Hajime and the others realized that Tio's remark made sense. They were impressed and remembered that even though she was a masochist, she was still quite wise. Exactly as Seal-san said. The group was confused by Rimuru's words. Rimuru then told them about his conversation with Seal before they left the city. Seal told him that each of the dungeons probably had different challenges. Why are you only telling this now? Hajime asked, confused. Rimuru then explained. Seal-san also said that if I help too much, you guys might end up failing the test. That's because the dungeon will see in your memories if you have overcome the preset difficulties. Rimuru said and everyone understood. He thought that even giving the hint that the heat was a test might count as a help. So he waited for someone else to figure it out on their own. This was also the reason for Rimuru not putting heat protection on the group members. Thinking that the heat was a test. If someone else overcame it for you, it wouldn't be considered overcoming a challenge. I see. That changed how I view the dungeons. Me too. Everyone looked thoughtful. Hajime looked at Tio impressed, as she managed to come to the same conclusion as Seal, who was probably the smartest being around. He absently looked at Tio's sweat that dripped down her neck and down the valley of her breasts. When he looked at this, he realized that his kimono was ill-fitting. This was probably because of sweat and Hajime's gaze was unconsciously drawn to the exposed part. Her breast, her nipple was exposed and Tio didn't notice. Hajime couldn't take his eyes off that provocative part and no one noticed him looking. Tio used his fan to wiggle and Hajime could see them wiggling. After that, Tio's kimono fluffed up with the swaying of his body and Hajime averted his eyes in shame. Hajime did not want to give in to the temptation that was Tio and looked at his beloved Yu. She was also very provocative. At the moment her shirt was unbuttoned and she was all sweaty, the sweat left several parts of her blouse transparent and Hajime couldn't take his eyes off her. Yu noticed his gaze and slowly approached Hajime while licking her lips and giving him a provocative look. Yu-san. We're inside a dungeon. It's not the place or occasion. Shia scolded her and Yu reluctantly walked away. The others thought it was funny to see Yu being scolded by Shia, who used to be the worthless rabbit. I couldn't help it. Yu is too erotic. Hajime looking at me in silence, cute. Can you two just reflect a little bit? Aren't you even a little guilty? First of all, why doesn't Hajime-san look at me? Even though I'm standing next to you-san and all sweaty. Look at my state. My confidence has plummeted now. Yua. I guess it's normal, since they love each other. I also want Gushin-sama to abuse me anytime. But for now I'll settle for him liking my breasts, kufufu. Shia seemed to have forgotten the time, circumstance and place as well. This made her lose some of the credibility she passed on in scolding Yu. In addition, she was disheartened that Hajime wouldn't look at her even though she was sweaty and in her see-through clothes. Tio then let out a perverted statement clarifying that she had caught Hajime looking at her breasts, but she didn't seem to know how exposed her breasts were. Hajime was half embarrassed and Chloe and Sakura were consoling Shia, who had lost her confidence. They rested some more and then continued their domination of the dungeon. The Great Gurian dungeon probably had 50 floors. That's because the floor the group was currently on was the 50th and it was quite distinctive. This floor had very strong monsters, really a lot of lava, and the worst part was the heat. This heat was really extreme and if it was a normal person, they probably couldn't stand it, much less fight. They were currently floating in the lava inside 2 boats. Hajime, Yu, and Tio were in a red boat coated with assigned strength, which was an ability Hajime derived from Varja. Meanwhile Rimuru, Chloe, Sakura and Shia were in a blue boat that Rimuru coated with his absolute barrier. The reason they were like this was because they took a shortcut. A few floors after they rested inside the igloo, Hajime used mineral analysis on the serene stone just out of curiosity. He then discovered that this stone controlled the magma and lava of the volcano. Everyone in the group was surprised by the information, but didn't see much use in this information. They continued collecting the stones as they entered the dungeon. Rimuru had the idea to send some golems possessed by smaller fire spirits ahead to facilitate the exploration. These golems, spirits were called the Phoenix Legion because of their appearance and were immune to any high temperature, so Rimuru thought they would be useful in this location. They didn't have a very developed consciousness and so Rimuru had to give very clear orders and stay in constant contact with them. With the Phoenix Legion showing the way, they quickly reached the room that descended to the 20th floor. They found a whole wall of serene stone. They collected several, and after that they decided it was enough. However, they collected too many stones and this made some parts of the flowing lava change. They had forgotten that the stones manipulated the lava and taking so many out of place caused the room to spiral out of control. The floor they were on began to explode into lava, but Rimuru used powerful earth magic and contained the lava. Also the room they were in had a small waterfall of lava and collecting the rocks made the waterfall get out of control. The waterfall started splashing lava everywhere and Chloe used light magic to disintegrate the lava. Then they took out the source of the lava. After they suppressed the lava, behind the waterfall they saw a large river of lava that the group didn't know where the end was. Rimuru then released one of the phoenixes to explore the tunnel and after a while the phoenix transmitted the image of where the river ended and the group realized that that place was still inside the dungeon, because the walls were artificial and there were some monsters emerging from them. They all realized that they had accidentally found a shortcut and found themselves in the dilemma of which path to take, either the correct one or the shortcut. Since this shortcut was inside the dungeon itself, the group thought they wouldn't be reproached by the dungeon and decided to take the shortcut. Then Hajime took 2 boats from his treasure chest. These boats were made by him and Rimuru before they came to the dungeon. The boats were extremely heat resistant and just in case they were coated with defensive magics. They went down to the end of the river and from the information the phoenixes collected, the place they arrived seemed to be the 50th floor. They were very attentive because this floor was very differentiated and had much stronger monsters. By differentiated, they meant that the floor was entirely covered by lava as if it was still the river they were on. After some time of sailing, facing monsters and traps, Rimuru gave a warning. There is something ahead, Rimuru said as they turned a corner of the river. He detected something with magic perception, but he didn't know what it was because Rimuru didn't have Seal with him at the moment, so he couldn't use his abilities that accurately. Tio, guide the boat. You and I will go on the attack. Okay. Gushin-sama, will you reward me with spankings afterwards? Tio agreed with Hajime and tilted his buttocks as he let out a perverted phrase that was ignored by everyone. It's coming. There. Rimuru warned them and Shia pointed at the magical beast that was coming towards them. Isn't that a little weak for floor 50? Sakura asked confused. That's because the monster they saw was a magma bat. This monster was like a bat that spewed lava from its wings, but it was no threat since its speed of both movement and throwing speed were ridiculous. This monster could be found even on the second floor of the dungeon. That's strange. Yeah, I think so too. Rimuru and Sakura found it strange as the bat did not attack them but flew back to the narrow opening it came from. They followed it to the narrow opening and went through it. On the other side there was a big room with a big river of lava, and a really high ceiling that you couldn't even see the end of it. At the end of the room was a large closed door. This door was round and black, half of which seemed to be submerged in lava. Hajime pointed Schlag at the bat and asked, "Should we kill it?" "I don't see why not." Doppen. Hajime suggested killing the bat that was heading towards them, and Rimuru, who hadn't detected anything, then agreed. Hajime shot the bat that was attacking from above and tore it apart. Quote. At the moment the shot resounded, another noise could be heard. The noise of a bat, but that noise came from where the shot, which went through the other bat, hit. Rimuru and Hajime were startled as they had not detected anything and all turned in the direction of the noise. On the ceiling, two small orange dots could be seen, they were eyes. At this moment Hajime and Rimuru's detections beeped for the creature, but they were calm as it was just another bat. However, more orange dots could be seen on the ceiling, more noises could be heard, and Hajime and Rimuru's detections beeped again. There were 5 bats, but Hajime and Rimuru's detections kept beeping. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, almost 10,000 and increasing. Everyone was staring at the ceiling that was filled with monsters with half-frightened looks, for even if they could face them, seeing such a large amount of them gave a little fear. "This really is the top floor." Rimuru made a sarcastic comment, and the moment the bats heard it. At the same time all the bats gave high-pitched screams and attacked the group. Ch-45. The Apostle of Demons. Currently the group was on the final floor of the Gurian dungeon. They were in a lava lake and over 10,000 bats that spewed lava from their wings attacked them at the same time. Hajime pulled out his Agni Orkan rocket launcher. Rimuru, Chloe and Sakura pulled out their swords and you prepared to fight. Meanwhile, Shia and Tio were guiding the boats. When the bats approached, chin, whoosh. Rimuru didn't even leave his seat, he just applied mana to his sword and it glowed in prism. He then swung it and the force the sword made just from swinging was so much that it created a thin but powerful wave of wind. This blade went towards the crowd of bats and killed a large amount of them. Chloe made her sword glow and threw several blades of light in their direction and killed several as well. Rising Tornado. Bachon Bakken. Wind blades. However Hajime, Sakura and you did not attack the bats. Not directly at least. Sakura realized that her nature element was not very useful against fire-type creatures and during the dungeon she always used spirit magic, but that would not be very useful in large quantities. So she didn't attack directly, she just used wind blades. Hajime also thought of a better way to kill the bats and didn't shoot them. You saw where he was aiming and did the same. All 3 were aiming at the lava river. It turned out that these bats were so weak that several parts of their bodies were not immune to lava, even though they lived in the volcano. The group realized this in one of the fights on the upper floors and decided to apply it here. All 3 attacked the lava at the same time and this caused a large amount of lava to rise. Splash. The lava splashed upwards and reached the bats. When this happened they gave horrific screams. This explosion killed almost all the bats and those that were still alive fled in fear. However, the problem was not over as the great wave of lava shook the entire lake. The boats were rocking heavily and Tio and Shia were trying to guide them correctly. A wave of lava crashed near Hajime's boat and splashed water onto them. The same thing happened to Rimuru's boat. Gushin-sama. You pushed away much of the lava that went toward her boat, but some of it went toward Hajime. Hajime couldn't see it until he heard Tio's warning, but it was too late and he couldn't react. Tio then spread his dragon wings and jumped ahead. She gave a groan of pain, but the lava damaged less than it would damage a human, this because of her fire resistance. However, a part of her wings were melted. Tio. Hajime-kun, over here. Hajime seemed worried about Tio as his injury was quite serious and Rimuru called him. As Hajime checked Tio's condition, Rimuru threw him a healing potion and he used it on Tio. Is that better? I knew you liked to feel pain, but I didn't think it was that much. Gushin-sama, don't talk nonsense. I only jumped in front so Gushin-sama wouldn't get hurt. Even after I helped you, being treated like this. Ha. Ha. Hajime made a snide remark and as usual this ended with Tio panting. The others also seemed happy that she was okay. At this moment the large door at the end of the magma lake opened and revealed another river of lava. Let's keep going then. They continued on their way and a few minutes later. Maybe this is the abode of the traders that you guys described. Yes, probably. It must be. I think so. Chloe. Rimuru. Shia and you agreed with Chloe's words. The place that Sakura pointed to was an island surrounded by lava. On this island had a black structure that could be called a house. That was probably the place where the Gurian liberator lived. Stay tuned. If that's the end, there must be some last test. Yes. Everyone agreed with Hajime's words and stood with cautious expressions. When they got close to the island, Ruar. A roar was heard and a large serpent appeared in front of them. This serpent was quite different from the monsters they had encountered so far. This was because its body was all made of magma. The monsters they had encountered until now had some characteristic related to magma, but never had their body been made entirely of magma. Dopan. Hajime didn't even say anything and shot the snake. The shots did some damage, but is it regenerating? That sounds problematic. Shia and Hajime spoke. What Shia said was indeed right. The snake regenerated quickly from the attack. It has a core. However, it stays in constant motion. The best thing to do is to destroy her completely. Rimuru could see a small core moving inside the snake's body. This core was probably regenerating the snake and Rimuru thought the others would have a hard time reaching it. So he thought it best to destroy the entire body. Leave it to me. Chloe stood up excitedly. She raised her hand toward the snake and a magic circle appeared in her hand. The magic circle let out a white light and grew larger until Chloe said, "Disintegrate." A large beam of white light came out of the circle and went towards the lava serpent. Roa. The serpent seemed to want to give a brave roar, but its body turned to dust before it could do anything. It couldn't even give its cry of determination, so that made it worthy of pity. The others already knew about Chloe's power, but they still had impressed expressions. Rimuru stroked Chloe's head and said, "Well done." Even though he was her fiancé, Rimuru was still her teacher and enjoyed seeing how strong Chloe had become. No. It was nothing. Chloe was embarrassed to be complimented by Rimuru and sat down in the boat with red cheeks. Hajime then spoke. "I don't think it's over yet." Look there. Everyone was confused by Hajime's words. This was because the snake was already dead and had no way to resurface. Hajime then pointed to the river and everyone looked at it with confused looks. That's. Shia muttered startled. That was because the spot where Hajime pointed had several snakes identical to the one Chloe had killed. There were a few dozen of them and they kept coming up. After a while they stopped appearing and their number was 100. Indeed, fighting 100 serpents in this hellish heat and still surrounded by magma suits the concept of this dungeon. Sigh, at least I think that's the final challenge. Are we going to have to destroy them all? What a pain in the ass. Sakura. Hajime and Rimuru spoke. Fighting several monsters that don't die easily in difficult conditions really suited the concept of the dungeon. Hajime sighed and picked up his weapons. The others also prepared to fight. Roar. 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 The magma serpents charged toward the group. Everyone in the group gave fearless smiles thinking they were almost at the end of the dungeon and attacked. Gushin-sama, I will help this time. If I kill several, I want several rewards punishments today. Tio said and attacked the snakes with purple, black-colored flames. That was Ryujin's breath. The fire killed 4 snakes that were nearby. Hajime didn't even pay any attention to his comment, but Shia was outraged. What? It's unfair if it's just Tio-san. If I kill more than her, Hajime-san will have a night with me. Shia said and crushed with Doryukin a snake that was attacking the boat. And so even without Hajime agreeing, a competition was set. Hajime was upset, but others just found the competition funny. Other snakes attacked Rimuru's boat and Chloe killed them with disintegrate. Hosh. Sakura opened her butterfly wings and flew high. She pulled out her pink sword and said, Soul Blade. Sakura's sword glowed pink and she slashed one of the serpents. Warua. The snake gave a horrified scream and fell down dead. The reason the snake did not regenerate was because Sakura used spiritual element in her sword. This caused the big cut to hit the soul of the snake. Tzuu. Rimuru flew with his giant bat wings and threw black rays at the snakes. These rays would strike the cores and kill them at the same moment. He could see the cores, so it was easy to do this, so he killed dozens of snakes. Bachon Bakken. Hajime used his Orkan rocket launcher and easily destroyed the snakes. In his other hand he held Donner. He was using Donner when he was viewing the cores. After a while with the group attacking, no one was injured and there was only one snake left. Zyu. Rimuru killed it with a black ray. Everyone checked around looking for other enemies, but saw nothing. Those outside the boat returned and Shia and Tio began to count their casualties. Yua. Shia looked disheartened by something and Tio had a perverted look on his face. She approached Hajime and said, Gushin-sama, I won the challenge. Tonight will Gushin-sama reward punish me? Shut up, pervert. Dappen. Thank you very much. Hajime gave Tio a rubber shot and she gave a shout of pleasure as she thanked him. The others were already used to these events and simply ignored them. They took their boats to the island that was probably the abode of the Gurian liberator. Everyone got off the boats and Hajime guarded them. Rimuru then said, It was easier this time. I agree. It was faster too. Everyone was talking about how it was easier than when they had mastered the Orcus dungeon and Raisin. Hajime said, Let's go, and walked towards the structure in the middle of the island. Everyone had already put away their weapons, since now it was just about receiving the magic of the Age of the Gods. Buff. KH. An explosion was heard above them and almost immediately a glowing white pillar descended toward Hajime. It was right at the moment when Hajime let his guard down. This pillar seemed to be made of white fire and everyone felt great power coming from it. The pillar came towards Hajime with extreme speed and Hajime didn't have time to dodge it. The only thing he could do was to put his metal arm in front of his vital points. He thought this would increase his chances. Kaboom. Ha. Hajime. Hajime-san. Gushin-sama. White fire covered Hajime and everything around him. The area the fire covered was so large that Hajime could no longer be seen. Shia and Tio gave desperate screams and tried to run towards Hajime. Sakura seemed dumbfounded by the events and also tried to run to help. Chloe strangely was calm and did not move. As they got closer, the white fire disappeared and they were surprised. That's because when fire disappeared instead of Hajime's injured body that the girls expected to see, they saw Hajime lying on the ground looking at Rimuru who was standing there with his hand raised. The earth around them was intact, unlike the earth that had been hit by fire. This was because before the fire arrived Rimuru had placed himself between Hajime and the attack. He then used his absolute barrier of Void God Azathoth to defend against the fire. Only Chloe knew that this would happen, because she also went to save Hajime, but saw Rimuru going before him. The girls realized that if it wasn't for Rimuru, Hajime might have died. Sakura and Chloe looked relieved. Shia and Tio had tears of relief in their eyes. Hajime also looked relieved as he thought he would have little chance of surviving if he received that attack. He might be able to survive if he used the ambrosia, but he had no guarantees. He didn't even have time to thank Rimuru because buff. They heard several explosions coming from above. Everyone was already on guard and they weren't even surprised. Gather round here. Rimuru shouted and everyone moved closer to him. Rimuru activated his barrier and Tio also conjured up a barrier for protection just in case. Kabam! Gray-colored flames came from various directions and hit the barrier. Hajime, Hajime, are you okay? Yu approached in desperation. Hajime noticed her and recovered from his surprise. Yes, I'm fine, thanks to my brother. In fact, thank you for that. It was nothing. Hajime thanked Rimuru who was still holding the barrier. Tio and Shia also expressed their happiness for Hajime's well-being and he thanked them. Hajime then pulled Donner and Schlag aside. Now is not the time for conversation. Let's see what attacked us. Huh. Yes. Let's go. Hearing Hajime speak, the girls realized that they were still in combat and also prepared themselves. Shia pulled out her sledgehammer and Tio and Yu looked ready to use their spells at any moment. Sakura pulled out her 2 katanas and Chloe stood ready to draw her sword. After a few seconds the gray fire stopped hitting the barrier, but Rimuru didn't undo the protection. That was because first he wanted to see who or what had attacked them. When the fire stopped falling a voice was heard. Certainly a force that cannot be ignored. You are all dangerous. Especially the blue-haired one. Now I understand why Milo was defeated. Everyone looked up and widened their eyes in surprise. The reason was because there were several gray dragons and a large white dragon flying near the ceiling. Mounted on the large white dragon was a man with white hair and golden eyes. He had gray armor and was looking at the group arrogantly. From his slightly dark skin tone and his pointed ears you could recognize him as a member of the demon race. To defend the breath of my white dragon and still to the bombardment of 50 gray dragons. They sure are dangerous. The report didn't say they were like this. You guys, what are you? How many magics from the age of the gods did you guys get? The man seemed impressed that the group was alive, but he didn't seem afraid either. It was as if he felt he had no way to lose. How about you introduce yourself first? Or does the demon race have no education? Well, it would have been best if he introduced himself before he attacked. Hajime did not aim his weapons but rather asked the man's identity. Rimuru did not seem afraid of the man and just made a sarcastic comment. There is no need to introduce myself to those who will soon die. I agree. I wouldn't introduce myself either, but you seem to already know our identities. Hajime was curious how the man knew about them. In addition, he was wondering why he was the first to receive an attack. If the man had knowledge of their strengths, the best way to use his surprise attack would be on the strongest, namely Rimuru. This means that the man probably received some wrong information. Rimuru undid the barrier because then they could talk better, but if the man attacked, Rimuru would quickly lift it again. The man didn't seem to like Hajime's words that indicated he would be killed and said, I have changed my mind. My name is Fried Baagr. Take my name in your flesh for I will be one of the apostles of God who will kill you. Apostles of God Hein. That's a very exaggerated term. Maybe that has some relation to the Demon King. I think so. He must be able to use some special magic and that's why he was accepted as an apostle. Perhaps the magic of the Age of God. Probably a magic that creates and controls magical beasts. From Fried's words, Rimuru and Hajime surmised that he was someone who was sent by the Demon King who was one of the gods. In addition, the man seemed to know about, and possess a god-age magic. That's right. The wonderful Aru-sama has called me his apostle and so I will serve him with my body and soul. As long as I follow his wishes, everything will work out and the humans will be exterminated. Seeing Fried's obsessed face as he spoke of his god, Hajime and Rimuru understood something. The reason Fried did not feel afraid of them was because he thought he had God on his side and would not be defeated in this way. Hajime and Rimuru had a quick telepathic conversation and agreed that they had enough information and could kill this man. In addition, Rimuru could steal his memories after death. Okay. Then die. Yeah, if he doesn't look like the type who is going to surrender anyway, then let's kill him. Haha. You guys dare to mock me. Then I will show you the power I have acquired. The power of the gods. Fried thought that Hajime and Rimuru were joking that they were going to kill him and became angry. He then began to recite a long incantation. Come on. Rimuru thought it was dangerous as he didn't know what magic Fried would use and from his words it seemed to be a god-age magic. Everyone then charged at Fried. Sakura opened her wings and attacked 2 of the gray dragons protecting Fried with their katanas. Spirit blade. Her sword flashed and with admirable fencing she cut the two dragons in half. Kay and Tio used magic from a distance on Freed, but it was no use as behind Freed had some giant turtles that sucked up magic. Dopan. Dopan. Hajime used aerodynamics and approached Freed by jumping. Meanwhile he was throwing gray dragons at us and hitting them right in the head, causing them to die. Rimuru hadn't moved yet as he was waiting to see if there were any other surprise attacks. Meanwhile Chloe was killing some dragons, but she was more focused on not letting anyone in the group get hurt, so she wasn't killing many. Feel the power of God. Lock borders. Freed had finished the chant before it was reached and used her magic. Yet nothing happened. Everyone was confused and Shia seemed to have realized something. Rimuru-san, behind you. When she said this in a desperate tone, Rimuru saw the space next to her distort and several gray dragons came out of it. Black flames. He easily burned the dragons with his flames. What is that? Freed's eyes widened. He looked dumbfounded. He couldn't understand how his dragons were killed so easily. The others took advantage that Freed was stunned and moved closer. Shoot. Buffff. Freed realized he was going to be attacked and made both the white dragon and the gray dragons use their blows. However, Buffff. The white and gray flames were nullified because of a black flash that came from a black fire. This fire came from the breath of a black dragon that was heading toward Freed. It was Tio. Freed looked shocked. In fact, the others also looked shocked to see Tio transform. Tio transformed because her mind was a whirlwind of emotions and all she could think about was eliminating the threat. Not for her, but for Hajime and the others. Tio went along with the group because she liked Hajime and also to investigate about those who came from the other world. She didn't plan to reveal her race to the others, but when she saw Hajime get hit by the white dragon's breath, she went into despair. In those few seconds that she thought Hajime was dead, Tio realized how she felt about Hajime. She no longer had interest in him because he was from another world or for him to be her master, but rather she had interest in him as a man. So if she held her own in a battle against someone who tried to kill Hajime, Tio would not be able to look at herself in the mirror. So she used her Ryujin transformation. The white dragon and Freed were startled by the pressure coming off Tio. To have a member of the Ryujin here. I'll back off for today, but keep your eyes open. The divine punishment will come. It's a shame I can't kill you myself, but the magma will take care of that. Freed looked like he wanted to run away, but the group was too close and would not let him get away. He realized this and then began to recite an incantation. The group was already a few feet away and Hajime took a few shots to not let him finish the spell. Looks like I'll have to sacrifice some. Freed said and lifted a red orb. That orb contained a strange energy and literally sucked some of the gray dragons inside. The group didn't understand anything, but they knew that Freed was trying something. Locking down borders. What? Everyone was confused by how fast Freed did the spell. The truth was that Freed used the life force of some dragons to increase the power of the spell and nullify the chant. Goodbye. Freed's dragons began to fade away and he went along. However, before Freed went through the portal. Nuo. Ua. As Freed went through the portal, he saw a black katana trying to cut off his head. He narrowly managed to defend it, but had to sacrifice his arm to do so. Freed and the dragons disappeared and all that was left was Freed's severed arm that fell into the lava and burned. He managed to escape. That could lead to trouble later. At least he lost an arm. Rimuru said, half regretting that he couldn't cut off Freed's head. The others were also angry at letting Freed get away, but they had something more pressing to do that because. Kaboom. Slaph splash. A tremor came from the ground and pillars of magma began shooting out of the ground. Everyone looked up in surprise and tried to keep their balance. What? It seems that he wants to kill us uncontrolled. The lava level of the dungeon. However, don't worry, I know how to get out of here. Rimuru reassured them that he had a method of getting out before the lava filled everything. What method? Hajime asked and Rimuru looked up at the ceiling as if confirming something. First, let's get the magic from the Age of God. Well, I want to obtain it too, but, is that okay? Hajime was confused by Rimuru's words, but he said it would be fine. Then everyone quickly went to the structure made of black bricks that stood on the island. Inside there were some furniture and objects, but the group was only interested in the magic circle in the middle of the room. They climbed into the magic circle and had their memories calculated. After that, a hologram of the Liberator told the same story as Oscar Orcus, and then they received the magic. Space magic. Ah, here is the proof of conquest. Let's go. The others didn't understand, but followed Rimuru. Rimuru came out of the tower they were in and looked up at the ceiling. He then raised his hand that was holding a red ring. This ring was the proof of conquest of the Gurian dungeon. When he raised his hand, a door. Exactly what Hajime said. There on the ceiling a large door that had been camouflaged until now opened. That would be the exit from the Gurian dungeon.